Javier Bajer. Javier, how are you, sir?
Nick, it's so good to see you. I'm very well. Very, very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I feel like we haven't seen each other in person for a long time, but I'm sure we'll
I
catch up
know.
again soon.
I know.
So, listen, let me start. I was chatting to a member of the team the other day, and they used an expression. I thought it was a really good expression to ask you. They said you can't. I can't remember what it was with respect to, but they said you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I thought carefully about this, and I thought I'm going to ask Javier whether you can teach an old dog new tricks. Kind of, what's your opinion on
Oh
that?
gosh, definitely. That's exactly what we do. But I think it's a bit um, offensive to call ourselves, people who've been around old dogs. Um, it almost kind of implies that they're old and they can't change. The reality is that people change.
Mm,
There's a secret to that, which is if you keep on doing the same things, you should not expect different behaviors or even different beliefs. So, yes, you can uh, transform culture, you can transform individual leadership, but not by doing the same, more of the same. It clearly doesn't work.
yeah, but then do you have to recognise? Like, does an individual have to recognise that it's not working before they can change, or that be imposed on them?
No, no, this is another one, which is I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I've been in the world of change through my many, many years with Accenture and leading huge changes. And mea culpa, the way in which we thought about change, it doesn't, it's like we haven't read the instruction manual for what makes humans human. Um, we're not machines. So, insight, awareness, um, plan, strategy, implementation that works when you're actually building an engineering project. But with
Yeah,
humans, it's a lot more organic. So you just at the drop of a hat, you get an insight, which you might even not be aware of. You start to believe in what in the new purpose of an organization, and all of a sudden you recruit a new set of behaviors without even noticing. So one of the things I always say is in our projects, don't announce the change. I'm thinking, well, how are we going to do a whole transformation project? They said, well, it's going to take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months if we take too long. Don't announce it. Um, and so the whole kind of basis of change is based on the wrong in the wrong understanding of what actually and human psychology, social psychology. Humans, if you look at what happened with COVID, you know, you
yeah,
have almost 8 billion people changing behaviors within 2 3 weeks. Everybody was homeschooling, everybody was home shopping, doing Zoom
yeah,
calls. It's like, what happened? What was the effort? So very quickly, everybody adapted, and likewise, again, everybody's going again into football stadiums and celebrating, and so
yeah.
humans have a huge capacity to change, but talking about change is the movie price. I'm not saying it's unnecessary. Well, it's unhelpful, really.
But then, is there? Do you look for the reaction of how when suddenly this change is kind of presented to the people, or it's imposed, or kind of how whatever words we want to use? Are there traits or reactions that you expect from that you're looking for from people in terms of kind of seeing that they've actually taken it on board or going to implement it?
Like in anything in life, once you're very clear of on creating a purpose, which is this massive magnet that is going to attract the right sort of people, the right sort of behaviors into doing something useful for clients, for citizens, for patients, for whatever your target is, automatically you get an effect, a tipping point effect, where a great a great majority of people will connect with that and very quickly will engage without even noticing it. The conversation changes, and then a few others will have to readapt or just move on. Um, I always say that if you're gonna, I'm from Argentina, so we love to eat meat. If I
Mm,
wanted to make, and I live in London, I've been there for 30 years. But if I want to make an Argentinian barbecue in central London, I'm not going to hire a vegan in the hope that he or she will adapt. No, no, no. once I need to find people who connect with my purpose. If I'm a bank, I need to find people who understand that financial services is the oil to a system of commercial system and people's livelihood, and I want to do it the right way. If I'm a
Yeah.
farmer, I want to connect with people's well-being, and once you do that, people's reactions um, are quite organic, are quite natural, and very quick, very subtle, very and people don't stop and say, "Well, let's go away and talk about our change project." That's
Yeah.
something that unfortunately I've been doing for many years. It doesn't work. You know,
Yeah.
uh, it's you don't talk about change. You just
Do it.
create an environment exactly. You live it, and it happens very quickly.
So let me ask, kind of on that basis, kind of obviously you've done change programs and you've been involved in change with some amazing businesses, big, small, and some of the biggest businesses in the world. But also, what's very special is you've done it with cities.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah. Well,
me,
I love it.
tell me, like kind
Of
of
course,
a couple of stories.
we know how to create a culture for, we did a culture for Accenture, for Google, Airbnb. So we know how to get people to profit on purpose, to connect with purpose and make it efficient and profitable, right? But when it
Mm.
comes to cities, like getting people to go back to Manhattan after 9/11, or when we work to reduce corruption in the Middle East, in the banking sector, or anything, it's amorphous. So you can't call people into a meeting, or get them to read your newsletter or go into the employee portal,
Yes.
or use pay and vote. So it's quite good in that none of the things that have not worked in the corporate world, but people keep on doing as if one day
Yes.
magically they will
Start
start
working.
working, paying people so they can perform the next queue, which it doesn't work. It's very short lived. In the in an org, in a city or in a country, we've done some work with a country last year. Um, you don't have those levers, which is
Mm.
great. So therefore, you have to work at the belief level using other tools. And so, what if all the tools that we thought were the kind of the bread and butter tools of transformation, like having a mission, vision, values, communicating, paying, rewarding, careers, mapping, and all this stuff? What if all that stuff was based on I'm not saying that it was wrong at that time, but in the 1950s, Pavlov's dogs, industrial revolution type of mindset. And what if actually they didn't really work with humans? And we can see now that it's hard to attract talent, it's hard to retain talent, hard to motivate. Engagement levels are not great. Employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction, that's a great metric of whether we're doing the right things or not.
Yeah.
Customers are not very happy, the whatever you use to measure. What if all these little tricks that we had in the box uh, kind of they stopped working, and in cities you don't have them, so you have to find ways to transform cultures without using pay rewards, communication
Yeah.
campaigns, and all that stuff. Which is it's great. I love it because it
And
gives us a good challenge.
how is it kind of like we've had a lot of we're still having a lot of conversations about generational differences, etc., etc. How has your thinking changed, especially when you're talking about cities, in terms of the new kind of different generations and how they act towards the whole thing?
Well, I think that there's an overall. I mean, it's great. What's going on, I think, is great. I mean, I regret the bad side of COVID, but the good side of this shock that we had in the world is that
Yeah.
now we can separate wheat from chaff,
Okay.
and the new generations are here to remind us that what we need to do is just rethink what we mean by work. The whole debate around hybrid. Zoom announced yesterday that they are asking their employees to go back to the offices. Everybody is very confused about this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think these are symptoms. There's no formula, but there's symptoms that show that the relationship between employer and employee, or the world of work, has to be um, has to be looked at and has to be recreated. So the new generations, I think they're fantastic because they're kind of starting to tell us, slightly older generations, that we have work. Work is not a bad word. Work should be the place where we come to develop our talents
Yeah.
and put them to good use. Work is not something you work hard to avoid and fight a work-life balance. How come we ended up, you know, in fighting work-life balance like work is not part of life. Life is so big that should include work. Your grandparents, I'm sure, and I don't know your personal story, but all of our grandparents felt pride on who they were. So if,
Yeah.
my grandfather was a pharmacist, and that was him. He on a Sunday, on a Monday, on a Tuesday, at 3 a.m., he was a pharmacist, and that defined who he was. And he, not because of that, he wasn't interested in making money. Of course, it was a profitable business, but at the same time purposeful. So profit and purpose have to be rethought about and kind of integrated again, the way they were only a few generations ago.
Javier, on that note, I think that's a really uplifting way to end it. So thank you so much indeed for your time today. I look forward to
Pleasure.
catching up.
Pleasure. We will.